Balaram Part-2 of 7. Jaya Bodhale Shimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatadine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We'll spend the day this morning and this evening with Balaram and Vrindavan killing demons and other things too. We discussed a little bit yesterday Dhenukasura. And either you've already received or you'll soon receive a little document that answers the question, or is a response to the question of the demons that were killed in Vrindavan, why these two were killed by Balaram and all the others were killed by Krishna. Is there some reason behind it? So the little document will tell you the reasons, some picture of the reasons behind it. And a little bit like Vedavati's question yesterday, it has something to do with the Guru Tattva principle. And there's more details than what I shared last night, so I don't need to repeat it because you can read that document. This is chapter 15. Balaram kills the ass demon Dhenukasura. And the first more than half of the chapter is the scene of the cowherd boys, Krishna and Balaram and the cowherd boys entering into the forest of Vrindavan. The age specifically is mentioned is Poganda age. According to Nectar of Devotion, that's 6 to 10 years of age. So it's during this age that he lifted Govardhan Hill, but the lifting of Govardhan Hill doesn't come till much later in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. And the way I decided to cover this was a combination of a lot of just narrating the Leela, and then some portion, maybe more than I should have, but just taking the language directly from Srimad Bhagavatam or Krishna book, because the language is so nice that describes the scene, particularly the section where Krishna points to the scene in Vrindavan and how he's appreciating how all the trees and the birds and they're honoring Balaram and they're benefited by Balaram, seeing them and touching them, and Krishna's honoring his brother Balaram, specifically because this is focusing on Balaram. So there's a close-up of a larger painting. The larger painting is the cowherd boys entering blowing the bugle and just playing. And the description is that when Krishna was herding the cows, or this looks like calves because it's calves because of his age, Krishna wanted to herd the cows. And Nanda Maharaj said the cows are too big. And Krishna was insistent, and so he said, you can take care of the calves. Krishna was very happy. So taking care of the calves, desiring to enjoy pastimes, Lord Madhava, sounding his flute, surrounded by cowherd boys who were chanting his glories, and accompanied by Lord Baladev, kept the cows, it says cows, I think it's calves, before him, and entered the Vrindavan forest, which was full of flowers and rich with nourishment for the animals. Now, a forest, most forests don't have big pasture grounds, but apparently these forests had big pasture grounds as well. And a number of nice paintings of Krishna entering the forest. Here's a close-up of the same. The Supreme Personality of Godhead looked over that forest, which resounded with the charming sounds of bees, animals, and birds, and which was enhanced by a lake, whose clear water resembled the minds of the great souls, and by a breeze carrying the fragrance of 100-petaled lotuses. Seeing all this, the Lord decided to enjoy the auspicious atmosphere. Of course, he was already enjoying. He's blowing out his bugle, his buffalo horn bugle. And it's just his play. They would play, and the cows or the calves would just follow behind. Their main business was playing. I mean, Krishna wanted to be with the cows and the calves, but the main business was playing and appreciating the atmosphere. Krishna would have conversation with the birds because Krishna knows all languages. He would sometimes have conversations using his flute. And sometimes he would speak the language of the birds, and they were very much relating to him. Sometimes, like this painting is showing, sometimes Krishna would show the posture of the peacock. And sometimes, you see in the background, the cowherd boys would see deer and they'd run like the deer. And sometimes they would sit cross-legged like this, like a frog, or the peacock with his back bowed, or on the left, a bird taking flight. And so they would just playfully interact with all the forest animals. And of course, the cows, along with the forest animals. And this was Krishna's childhood, Poganda age. And constantly by his side was Balaram. Sometimes the cowherd boys would swing on swings. We don't see the cows, but they just hang out with Krishna. Wherever Krishna goes, that's where they go. Sometimes they would go to a well and call out bad names down the well, and the echo would come back, and they would all laugh when the echo came back. Just playful children. But like children of this world, their imitations or replicas, shadows of the pastimes of Krishna. There we see one of the cowherd boys imitating Krishna, playing upon the flute and grazing here and there. Then this very beautiful scene where Krishna pauses with Balaram by his side and appreciates the scene. So here's this nice narration. The primeval Lord saw that the stately trees with their beautiful reddish buds and their heavy burden of fruits and flowers, were bending down to touch his feet with the tips of their branches. Thus he smiled gently and addressed his elder brother. So here he's standing alone. Notice water buffalo and tigers, and there's all kinds of animals. They seem to get along quite well. "Oh, greatest of lords," Krishna speaking to Balaram, "just see how these trees are bowing their heads at your lotus feet, which are worshipable by the immortal demigods. The trees are offering you their fruits and flowers to eradicate the dark ignorance that has caused their birth as trees." And then there's bees. "O original personality of Godhead, these bees must be all great sages and most elevated devotees of yours, for they are worshipping you by following you along the path and chanting your glories, which are themselves a holy place for the entire world. Although you have disguised yourself within this forest, O sinless one, they refuse to abandon you, their worshipable Lord." These peacocks are dancing before you out of joy. These doe are pleasing you with affectionate glances, just as the gopis do, and these cuckoos are honoring you with Vedic prayers. All these residents of the forest are most fortunate, and their behavior toward you certainly befits great souls receiving another great soul at home. Now we're heading for the Dhenukasura story, but it's essential, the way that it's composed by Vyasadeva and spoken by Shukadeva Goswami, is that the scene, the playfulness of the cowherd boys and the scenes of nature found in the forest of Vrindavan, and it leads up the Taliban forest. This earth has now become most fortunate because you have touched her grass and bushes with your feet and her trees and creepers with your fingernails, and because you have graced her rivers, mountains, birds, and animals with your merciful glances. We heard this text yesterday. But above all, you have embraced the young cowherd women between your two arms, a favor hankered after by the goddess of fortune herself. Now remember, this is the Poganda age. But that's what chapter 15 says. Sometimes, with a voice as deep as the rumbling of clouds, he would call out with great affection the names of the animals who had wandered far from the herd, thus enchanting the cows and the cowherd boys. Sometimes he would cry out in imitation of birds such as chakoras, craunchas, chakravas, bharadvajas, and peacocks, and sometimes he would run away with smaller animals in mock fear of lions and tigers. When his elder brother, fatigued from playing, would lie down with his head upon the lap of a cowherd boy, Lord Krishna would help him relax by personally massaging his feet and offering other services. And a BBT painting of the same. So Krishna's at Balaram's feet. The cowherd boy is acting as the pillow for Balaram. And other cowherd boys are doing cowherd boy things, blowing on a conch shell and playing with a rope and doing cowherd boy things. And sometimes it was the other way around. Sometimes Krishna grew tired from fighting and lay down at the base of a tree, resting upon a bed made of soft twigs and buds, using the lap of a cowherd friend as a pillow. Some of the cowherd boys who were all great souls would then massage his feet, and others, qualified by being free of all sin, would expertly fan the Supreme Lord. No, it doesn't show anyone fanning the Supreme Lord, but here's fanning the Supreme Lord. And Balaram's massaging his back, and very interesting headgear these guys have. From this artist, at least they're having lunch. That's the picture of chapter 15, the very, very playful cowherd boys enjoying the scenes of nature, Krishna appreciating Balaram and his merciful glances and touching and so forth to enrich the scene of Vrindavan. Then comes the next phase of the chapter, that's the Dhenukasura. So Krishna has a number of friends, and one of those friends is mentioned here, Sridham, very close friend of Rama and Krishna, along with Subal, Stoker Krishna, and others, lovingly spoke the following words. First they speak to Balaram, they mention Balaram's name. "O Rama, Rama, mighty armed one, O Krishna, destroyer of the miscreants, not far from here is a very great forest filled with rows of palm trees." But there's a problem. And there he is, Dhenukasura. In that Talavan forest, many fruits are falling from trees, and many are already lying on the ground. But all the fruits are being guarded by the evil Dhenuka. Now this shows Dhenuka with fangs. Normally donkeys don't have fangs, but this guy he's able to eat people. The demon Dhenuka has eaten men alive. And therefore all people and animals are terrified of going to the Tal forest. O killer of the enemy, even the birds are afraid to fly there. So off they go, heading for the Talavan forest anyways. "Oh, Krishna, please get those fruits for us. Our minds are so attracted by their aroma. Dear Balaram, our desire to have those fruits is very great. If you think it's a good idea, let's go to the Tal forest." So there they're gesturing to the Tal forest, pointing the tall fruits. Some of the tall fruits have landed on the ground. Krishna and Balaram are there considering. Hearing the words of their dear companions, Krishna and Balaram laughed, and desiring to please them, set off for the Talavan, surrounded by their cowherd boyfriends. And the narration says the first one to enter the forest was Balaram. And what did Balaram do? He started shaking the trees. And as he shook the trees, the tall fruits fell to the ground. And when the tall fruits fell to the ground, Dhenukasura heard, "Someone has come into my forest." And he came running. And when he came running, he aimed his hind legs at Balaram to kick him in the chest. As he ran, the whole earth trembled. So, as the painting shows, Balaram, no problem. He caught his hind legs, twirled him around by his hind legs, and tossed him in the top of a tree. The powerful demon rushed up to Lord Baladev and sharply struck the Lord's chest with the hooves of his hind legs. Then Dhenuka began to run about, braying loudly. Of course, there's not a painting of Balaram being kicked, but moving again toward Lord Balaram, "O king," this is Shukadev speaking to Maharaj Parikshit, "the furious ass situated himself with his back towards the Lord. Then, screaming in rage, the demon hurled his two hind legs at him." Big mistake. Look at that, tossing him around like with one hand. Lord Balaram seized Dhenuka by his hooves, whirled him about with one hand, and threw him into the top of a palm tree. The violent wheeling motion killed the demon. That's the end of Dhenukasura. And then Lord Balaram threw the dead body of Dhenukasura in the tallest palm tree in the forest, and when the dead demon landed in the treetop, the tree began shaking, the great palm tree, causing a tree by its side also to shake, broke under the weight of the demon. The neighboring tree caused yet another tree to shake, and this one struck yet another tree, which also began shaking. In this way, many trees in the forest shook and broke. So the next scene is Dhenukasura has some buddies. And the buddies heard the big sound, and they came running to defend Dhenukasura. And running, they all ended up in the tops of trees. Look at all these ass demons in the tops of trees. And there's the cowherd boys on looking and saying, look at the fun. And they want the tall fruits. Because of Lord Balaram's pastime of throwing the body of the ass demon into the top of the tallest palm tree, all the trees began shaking and striking against one another as if blown about by powerful winds. This painting shows they're coming around the corner, see on the right side. More ass demons. The other ass demons, close friends of Dhenukasura, were enraged upon seeing his death, and thus they all immediately ran to attack Krishna and Balaram. Now, Krishna is using the same method, taking the hind legs, grabbing the hind legs, twirling them around. Balaram looks like he's still using one hand. Krishna is using both hands. And twirling them around and tossing them in the tops of trees. Many nice paintings. O king, as the demons attacked Krishna and Balaram, easily seized them one after another by their hind legs and threw them all into the tops of palm trees. The one on the left, he just smashed him into the side of the palm tree. Didn't get the story right. There we go. There they are. The earth then appeared beautifully covered with heaps of fruits and the dead bodies of the demons, which were entangled in the broken tops of the palm trees. Indeed, the earth shone like the sky decorated with clouds. Hearing of this magnificent feat of the two brothers, the demigods and other elevated living beings rained down flowers and offered music and prayers and glorification. The demigods they like watching Krishna's pastimes. No surprise. People now felt free to return to the forest where Dhenuka had been killed, and without fear they ate the fruits of the palm trees. Also the cows could now graze freely upon the grass there. So he was a terrorist. He kept everybody away. Very protective of his territory. Thereafter, Krishna, Balaram, and the cowherd boys returned to Vraja. So the final scene of chapter 15 is Krishna being greeted by the gopis, because we heard yesterday that like the gopis, the cowherd boys couldn't bear a moment's separation from Krishna. They were so attached. But here come the gopis, and very nice painting. Krishna's coming back from the forest. The one with the crown on her head, of course, that's Radharani, with so many other gopis wringing their hands and just catching a glimpse of Krishna coming back from the forest was their delight. With their bee-like eyes, the women of Vrindavan drank the honey of the beautiful face of Lord Mukunda. And thus they gave up the distress they had felt during the day because of separation from him. The young Vrindavan ladies, of course these are girls, cast sidelong glances at the Lord, glances filled with bashfulness, laughter, and submission. Now, each of these are secondary rasas, but the stimulation for the secondary rasas is Krishna. And Sri Krishna completely accepting these glances as the proper offering of respect, entered the cowherd village. And another BBT painting of the same scene. Lord Krishna's hair, powdered with the dust raised by the cows, was decorated with a peacock feather and forest flowers. The Lord glanced charmingly and smiled beautifully, playing upon his flute, while his companions chanted his glories. The gopis altogether came forward to meet him, their eyes very eager to see him. So this is Vrindavan. Such a scene, and it's a daily affair. And then shortly is going to come the interaction with the parents, the adults, particularly Yasoda and Nanda. But there's all these rasas and all these details and details and details of loving exchange. Just Krishna's glances, Krishna's flute playing, his smiling, and how that completely charmed the gopis and then others. My dear Parikshit, that Lord Balaram killed Dhenukasura is not a wonderful thing, considering that he is the unlimited personality of Godhead, controller of the entire universe. Indeed, the entire cosmos rests upon him, just as woven cloth rests upon its own horizontal and vertical threads. So here's an image of horizontal and vertical threads, the weaving instrument. Otram and protam, the Sanskrit. So he, Balaram, is the support of all of that. So Parikshit is being advised by Shukadeva Goswami. No surprise he was able to do this. The lotus-eyed Lord Sri Krishna, whose glories are most pious to hear and chant, returned home to Braja with his elder brother Balaram. Along the way, the cowherd boys, his faithful followers, chanted his glories. Now, most of the paintings show they're playing musical instruments or playfully swinging something or something or something. But again and again, it's repeated just in this chapter. They're chanting his glories. Recently, there was one devotee that asked a nice question. They do deity worship in their temple. They worship Radha Krishna deities every day. And they find very, very much satisfaction in worshiping the deity. But they were struggling, they shared, when doing their service in the pujari room, other than the dressing of the deity, putting away paraphernalia and everything, and cleaning and doing those duties, how to maintain the same standard of Krishna consciousness, and seemingly just chanting didn't have the same appeal or absorption as their absorption in their deity worship. So what to do? So reading this, I'm just reminded, the residents of Vrindavan not only did what they did, the answer I gave was just think of Mother Yasoda as she's churning butter. And while she's churning the butter, what's she doing? She's singing. She doesn't need a songbook. She just sings wonderful songs about Krishna, Krishna's beauty, and Krishna's pastimes, and she is absorbed. It's part of the absorption. Similarly for the cowherd boys, it's part of the absorption. They're chanting his glories and chanting his glories and engaging with him in these loving exchange ways, assisting in his pastimes, but they're completely absorbed, completely attached to him. After dining sumptuously on the delicious food given to them by their mothers, mothers means Rohini and Yashoda, and being pampered in various ways, the two brothers lay down upon their excellent beds and happily went to sleep in the village of Braja. So that's chapter 15, and the killing of Dhenukasura, along with many other images of Vrindavan and the cowherd boys and the forest and the animals and all of that beautiful narration all in one chapter. So we saw some of this yesterday. Namam duskritina mudha prapajante naradama. Dhenukasura represents gross material intelligence, ignorance, and spiritual knowledge. So this document talks about what Dhenukasura and Pralambasura represent. These are BTG illustrations of the same. The Mayaya Paritagyanis are those persons whose erudite knowledge has been nullified by the influence of illusory material energy. They're mostly very learned fellows, great philosophers, poets, literati, scientists, but the illusory energy misguides them, and therefore they disobey the Supreme Lord. The guy at the bottom is Charles Darwin, studying the eye and so forth and so on. And the other fellow is inventing a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the laboratory, making nice diagrams over on the right there, how you make the sandwich. The mudhas, Dhenukas, the mudhas, this is going through that verse, section by section, who are grossly foolish, like hardworking beasts of burden. They want to enjoy the fruits of their labor by themselves, and so do not want to part with them for the Supreme. The typical example of the beast of burden is the ass. This humble beast is made to work very hard by his master. The ass does not really know for whom he works so hard day and night. He remains satisfied by filling his stomach with a bundle of grass, sleeping for a while under fear of being beaten by his master, and satisfying his sex appetite at the risk of being repeatedly kicked by the opposite party. As I'm reading this, I'm thinking of Prabhupada sitting on the Vyasa in Henry Street. And Prabhupada is describing material enjoyment. It was really funny. Prabhupada made a motion like this. He said, Maya is calling. Come on and enjoy me. Come on and enjoy me. Come on and enjoy me so I can kick you in the face. That is Maya. Some nice quotes from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He, of course, as we know, wrote extensively about the demons, killing of the demons in Vrindavan. Maybe some of you know Bhakti Chaitanya Swami gave a whole seminar on this, just on that topic. Krishna's killing demons in Vrindavan. It was very, very attractive, very thorough. Much of it is drawn from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The personification of stula buddhi, or crude, gross intelligence, who prohibits access to tal fruits. And somehow the translators made this ice apples. I don't know what an ice apple is. You know what it is? No. Ice, I-C-E. Ice apple. That's it's what? It's a palm fruit. Palm, P-A-L-M. Palm fruit. Ice apple equals palm fruit. Palm fruit equals ice apple. We learned something today, right? So this is just a cut and paste from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's writing and a translation of it. In understanding Vaishnava tattvas and siddhantas, it is extremely important to have subtle intelligence. Those individuals who form a group and then partially propagate that one single individual Vaishnava tattva by breaking it down into small pieces are said to have crude intelligence. Interesting? This crude, gross intelligence is the personification of a donkey. Dhenukasura. The donkey cannot personally taste the sweet tal fruit, and when others eat it, he opposes them too. The import of this pastime is as follows. For the benefit of Vaishnavas who belong to a sampradaya, there are many transcendental literatures. There are many, should be plural, literatures written by the benevolent previous acharyas, and those individuals who possess crude, gross intelligence neither understand such literature themselves, nor allow others to see such literature. Those devotees, now he's going to advocate Raga Bhakti. Those devotees who follow Vaidhi Bhakti, while merely carrying heavy loads of rules and regulations, specifically become overpowered by such crude, gross intelligence and thus unable to attempt to rise to a higher level of adhikar in bhakti. Listen to what he's saying. However, Vaishnava Dharma is such that it contains unlimited depths of progress within it, but individuals simply remain attached to the Vaidhi sections of bhakti and are unable to experience Raga Bhakti Tattva, are inadvertently comparable to ordinary fruitive people who delight in karmakanda. Thus, without killing the donkey-like Dhenukasura in one's intelligence, one cannot attain progress in understanding true Vaishnava tattvas. Pretty heavy, huh? Pretty heavy. Now, further, this is not just on Dhenuka. He identifies Pralamba and Dhenuka with passion and ignorance. Passion and ignorance. No, lust and ignorance. And ties them to the Guru principle. This is the Balaram part. Indicating that these obstacles must be removed by Guru in the form of Lord Balaram by our following instructions of Guru. It was the Vedavati's question yesterday. So we not just hear, but we have to follow. From Bhaktivinoda, there are 2 demons killed by Sri Baladev, but the contaminations they represent will have to be removed by dint of the devotee's own endeavors. This is one of the secret mysteries of Braja Bhakti. If one endeavors in a very humble mood, Krishna will certainly show his mercy. Then, upon the awakening of the mood of Sri Baladev in the devotee's heart, these contaminations will instantly be removed. We're almost done. Now, a lesser authoritative source So Srimad Bhagavatam is our topmost authoritative source. The Sattvika Puranas and the other Puranas and so forth, there's mixtures in those other Puranas that we don't have the unmixed that Srimad Bhagavatam has. And somewhere in that hierarchy is Garga Samhita. The Garga Samhita, some people just, Hari Parshad Prabhu kind of poo-poos Garga Samhita. And there are others that draw from it. For example, Shivaram Maharaj draws from it. Selectively, but it doesn't hold the same standard as Srimad Bhagavatam. But in Garga Samhita, there's a whole section in each of the killing of the demons, who the demons were in their past lives. So I'm going to mention it with that qualifier. According to Garga Samhita, in his past life, Dhenukasura was the powerful son of King Bali, who was the son of Virochana. And of course, Virochana is the son of Prahlad. So he's in the family of Daityas, the son of Bali. And his name was Sahashika. One time he enjoyed pastimes with 10,000 women on Gandhamadana mountain. And he just disturbed a very wrong person to disturb. Durvasa Muni was doing meditation. The sounds in that forest of the many musical instruments and ankle bells broke the trance of Durvasa Muni, who in a cave nearby was meditating on Lord Krishna. That's nice, meditating on Lord Krishna. Very thin, with a long beard, walking with wooden sandals, holding a stick, and glowing with flames of anger. Uh-oh, here comes Durvasa Muni. Durvasa, whose curse makes the universe tremble, left his cave and spoke to Sahasika. Fool, ass-like person, rise, become an ass, O demon. After 400,000 years, in the transcendental circle of Mathura, in the sacred forest of Talavan, you will attain liberation by Lord Balaram's hand. Because this is an illustration. There's on the right side, that's Durvasa Muni. And the left side, there's Sahashika with his, he only shows two ladies, but he's got a whole bunch of girlfriends. And he's cursed. Sri Narada said, because he had given Prahlad Maharaj, this is one of the reasons why Krishna didn't kill Dhenukasura, according to Garga Samhita, because Krishna had given, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, gave Prahlad Maharaj the benediction, your descendants will not be killed by me. Krishna arranged that Dhenukasura was killed by Lord Balaram's hand. No, different scholarly devotees hold Garga Samhita in, different levels of regard. But so I'm again mentioning the qualifier, so just repeating. This is what Garga Samhita says. One of the reasons, at least, why Krishna didn't kill Dhenukasura, but Balaram did. In the document that you should be getting, there's another Vaishnava. This is the source of this one is Hari Parshad Prabhu, because he's translated the writings of Hari Suri, and Hari Suri writes, Krishna considered Kara. Kara means ass. And one of the persons who Ramachandra killed was a demon named Kara and Dushan. I mean, imagine parents calling their son Kara. But that's what they call them. And so Hari Suri writes, Krishna considered, since Ramachandra, by precedent, already is the one that killed Kara, the ass, or the person named Kara, so Balaram should kill this one, not me, because he's a Kara, he's an ass, he's a donkey. Dhenukasura is also a Kara. That's another reason. Take your pick. So that's it for this morning's topic. It's 9 o'clock. So let's see if there's some discussion. So, stepping back, yesterday after class was a person that I haven't met before, but he said he's not a full-on Hare Krishna practitioner, but when he saw the deities at the temple, in Krishna Balaram, he was thinking, we hear so much about Krishna, but not so much about Balaram. I want to hear some more about Balaram. And I said, stick around. You're going to be Balaramized. But it's nice because, as we know, by bala, by spiritual strength, we can become self-realized and perfected souls, and without spiritual strength, you can't. And where does that spiritual strength come from? So hearing about meditating, remembering, glorifying, I can tell you, in preparing for all of this, it's been a Balaram immersion for me. And so you're getting a little sprinkling of the Balaram immersion just by hearing and hearing and hearing. And besides these two, that today, in this morning and evening, he killed some other demons, but there's some other features of Lord Balaram that are very attractive. Inseparable from Krishna, naturally. So when you think of Krishna, you think of Radha. When you think of Krishna, you think of Balaram. How can you think otherwise? So it's a nice opportunity in anticipation of Balaram's appearance. So you'll have a very nice Balaram Jayanti, hopefully. So will I. Any discussion? Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for your class. The question, something that came to my mind is, when Krishna kills demons, there's usually Agas or a demon, a single demon, but here there's many demons. Is there any significance to that?
He's got friends. Aga didn't have friends. Arishta didn't have friends. I mean, I don't know of any reason other than that. There may be some esoteric reason that I'm not familiar with. Yeah? Our sound system needs a sound system.
I was thinking about the similar question that Chegopal Prabhu asked, and I was wondering when you were speaking whether it has anything to do with what Dhenukasura represents in terms of this crude materialistic intelligence, how it just seems to come up in so many shapes and forms. You think we've dealt with it, and then it just seems to show up in different colors and shapes and forms. That was a thought that crossed my mind. I wanted to ask you what you thought about my speculation.
It's a nice speculation. I mean, it's very reasonable. And I try to refrain from reasonable and go to the authoritative, because it's certainly very reasonable. It's easy to imply different shapes and colors, and because even the paintings, the donkeys are of different colors, floating in the treetops, look like clouds of different colors. And similarly, persons who have that crude intelligence, something that helps them support that crude intelligence is people that agree with him. Birds of a feather.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful class. Maharaj, I'm trying to frame my question in my mind, but it may not come out really well, but I'll say what I'm thinking. Before the class, I was thinking about, okay, when we worship, when we get the mercy of Srimati Radharani, we get Krishna. And then we talk about like higher forms of bhakti. When we talk about Lord Balaram, we talk about spiritual strength. And then based on your presentation today, the spiritual strength is represented by, okay, not having mode of passion and ignorance. And there's another question related to that, but I'll finish this thought first. So this passion and ignorance is not so much going to take us to the higher forms of bhakti. But when we compare Lord Balaram with Guru Tattva actually takes us to the top form. So how do I relate to that? Like, based on this description, if we are just free from passion and ignorance, how can we get to the higher forms of bhakti?
By sound. And that's what Guru does.
Yeah.
Guru he conveys the sound. That little article, you circulated it. So take a look, and however you get little messages, it's in that explanation. Specifically, the reference is made to a verse from the 10th Canto Bhagavatam, how hearing Rasa Leela topics from the qualified speaker can take away lust. Now there's lust, that's passion, and then there's the ignorance. But it's through Guru that sound that about removal of lust must come. Now the pastime is Radha and Krishna, but the person who speaks it is Guru. So here's a separate point. It's related to what you said, but it's not the same point as what you said. And I'd have to research it where I read it. I believe it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, but my memory isn't sharp on this. Maybe somebody in the room will remember. Guru can represent either the representative of Balaram or representative of Radharani. Now, if one is representative of Radharani, what does that mean? Because she's representing, she delivers Krishna. And Balaram delivers Krishna. That's the Guru function. So delivering Krishna through the strength of Balaram, delivering Krishna through the attractiveness of Radharani, you get Krishna. Now, if anybody knows where that is, or if in the course of my visit to Alachua you run across it, let me know, because I'd like to read it again. So it's not exactly what you're asking, but it's in relation to what you're asking. In either case, there's something from the Guru Tattva principle one must receive and act on. It's not just stand in a shower and become clean. You cleanse, you receive, and you apply the messages. There's some That's the relationship, the servant of the guru, not just the guru picks you up. Now, that's not exactly in response to your question, but it's in the ballpark.
Thank you, Maharaj. One more question I have is, did I understand that that crude intelligence is also is the presentation saying that even someone who does Vaidhi sadhana bhakti has crude intelligence? Did I
Someone who
read that
does
right?
what kind of sadhana?
Someone who's doing Vaidhi bhakti, according to Bhakti Vinod Thakur,
He's just my understanding of what he's doing, what he wrote. I put it because he wrote it.
Yeah.
Is it's not just people who, the scientists, that because of their orientation towards towards atheism, they cast aspersions towards persons who have theism as their access to truth. So that's a crude intelligence example, but he's taking it to a little more subtle form. There are persons that are engaged, repeat what he said, they're so attached to Vaidhi sadhana bhakti that somebody that, in addition to Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, they go to a more subtle state of appreciation of raga bhakti. The raga bhaktas don't trash Vaidhis, Vidhis. But they're persons that don't want people to go there. They don't want people to go to that tall forest and eat the fruits of raga. That's the crude intelligence, but there's other kinds. It's not just that one.
Okay, that's interesting.
Does that answer your question? No.
Yes. So the understanding, just to understand that, is crude intelligence means that someone who prevents someone to go to Raganuga, even though they may be enjoying the fruits of Raganuga, or
no,
or just not preventing them to go to Raganuga.
Have you had the experience? I've had the experience of, not necessarily towards me, but persons who are engaged in more subtle aspects of Krishna bhakti, and people cast aspersions against that person due to their crude intelligence. That, whether they're experiencing and tasting or not. Now, some persons are imitation tasters, and they're not. But the ones who, anyway, without making that refinement, persons of crude intelligence can't discern what's the real deal and who's the imitator, because they have crude intelligence. So just in general, they're against it. But it has its place. It's an essential part. Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, prema bhakti. And within sadhana, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, raganuga sadhana bhakti. It's a type of sadhana. Although it's in Rupa Goswami's teaching, some people imitate that don't have the adhikar, and some persons don't have the adhikar, they don't want anybody to have the adhikar. That's the crude intelligence.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Then comes, what's the subtle intelligence, when you can understand, here's a qualified person. That's another topic. I see a bunch of hands going up.
So I maybe I didn't catch it right, but I thought I also caught the point that those who are attached specifically to the rules and regulations of Vaidhi Bhakti, they're the ones who could be affected by this crude intelligence.
They are possessing that crude intelligence.
Because of their attachment to the rules and regulations.
Because of their exclusive disliking anything other than their rules and regulations.
Yeah.
That's the crudeness.
Right. Yeah.
When somebody has, because, our examples of the Goswamis they didn't neglect the rules and regulations. Fastidiously, they followed the rules and regulations, and they're followers of eternal associates of the personality of Godhead, and they themselves are a qualified person for us to follow. And so the one is overly attached to Vaidhi Bhakti and wants to prevent or disrespect those that are going to the subtler stages of Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti and then etc. That's what it's speaking of. So we'll say it in reverse. Being attached to Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti is not a problem. If you're a Raga Bhakta, you don't trash the Vidhis of Sadhana Bhakti. So overly attached to the exclusion of subtler forms, the more internal absorption along with the external. Okay. There's lots of hands up. So go ahead.
Thank you for your class, Maharaj. Just to build on the same, to
We're on a roll here.
kind of go a little deeper in that. So as practicing sadhakas, as, practitioners of Vaidhi, trying to practice Vaidhi Bhakti, it's important to follow those rules and regulations.
Thank you.
But also it's not good to become overly attached to the rules and regulations, as we were just discussing. So what should our mood be when we are practicing these rules and regulations in order to not become attached to them?
Well, but you're getting, your voice went really fast. This is the key part of your question, so speak slowly, because I want to capture what you're saying. If you speak it slowly, I can capture it better.
Yes. So
for those of us that are practicing Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti,
what should our mood be while practicing the rules and regulations in order to not become attached and fall prey to crude intelligence?
okay. There's a door. Many of us, there's some persons in the room that were born into a Hare Krishna family. Many of us were not born into a Hare Krishna family. I mean, maybe, following some kind of Vedic something or other, but not Hare Krishna family. For those of us, it was a door. For me, for sure, it was a door. And, I didn't even know there was a door. And then because of XYZ things, then I started to understand there's a door. And then I walked through the door, and then there was another door, and then there was another door. And so using that metaphor of doors, that then you open the door and you got something on the other side. There are persons, so the thing for you to be cautious about is don't deny the fact that there is another door, the internal absorption door. And in an authorized, Rupa Goswami authorized methodology of going through that, what that other door is and how to go through that other door. So if you deny that there is another door, and other people that go through that recognize the door and go through the door, and they're actually qualified to actually follow, but no, that's the caution. So you may or may not be ready. I may or may not be ready. But there are, that some persons are ready. There's imitator people, but some persons are ready, and they see a door and they go through the door and don't object to it. Don't be the Dhenuka that doesn't want people to eat that tal fruit. That's using Bhaktivinoda Thakur's comparison. That's what's to be cautious about. Don't be in a big hurry to open that door and go through the door. Be qualified to understand what it is and to prepare oneself to do what it is, and all those things. And the right association and guidance and all those things. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj. That helped.
Go ahead.
I was wondering if you have heard that Srila Prabhupada said you can go to Balaram and you can say, "My dear sir, I have a problem." And then you can tell your problem and Balaram will help you.
I don't remember hearing that, but it makes sense that Prabhupada said that, because it's the Guru Tattva principle, or in this, it's the origin of the Guru Tattva principle, and why not go? No, through the medium of spiritual master, of course, but on his order, we can go directly to Balaram and say, and on the instruction of the spiritual master to do so, that Balaram will hear. Now, it's not that Balaram is our order supplier, but he's very kind. We had this discussion yesterday. He's merciful. So now, you want to add to that? You're raising the microphone
No,
like
no,
you
I
want.
was just going to say, yes, it works.
Huh?
I was going to say, it works going to Balaram and telling,
You're verifying.
yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. It's nice to add a little preamble if you so desire. But go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I'm trying.
I mean, that's what the cowherd boys said. If you think it's a good idea, let's go. That's the preamble. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I want to understand this. I want to put these two pastimes together, compare.
Which two?
The one pastime is about Narada Muni cursing Nalakura and Manigriva, because when Nalakura and Manigriva, they were grossly engaged in the sense gratification.
Yeah.
Narada Muni cursed them to become the trees, and then as the trees, they were able to witness the pastimes of Krishna, and their deliverance was, they were able to develop the love for Krishna, right? when they were delivered. But here, even though Bali Maharaj's son was grossly engaged in the sense gratification, the curse that Durvasa Muni gave made him into a demon where without any purification he got liberated. So I want to understand the difference between Narada Muni's curse. He was very compassionate. The way that he cursed is, in the curse itself, he was trying to give the benediction of getting the Krishna's prema. But whereas Durvasa Muni's curse was, even though it was giving him liberation, but it was not developing any love towards the Lord. So I want to understand.
So we hold Narada Muni up here, and Durvasa Muni is not the same stature as Narada Muni, but powerful for sure. Is that too simple of an answer for you?
Yes. Yeah, I want to understand.
You want it more complicated?
Yeah.
You're okay with that answer?
I'm okay with that answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's quite uncommon to hear that Durvasa Muni was engaged in austerities fixed in meditation upon Krishna. That's an unusual characterization of Durvasa Muni. He's a partial anyway, without the deep expanding. But that's Garga Samhita. So it's not a 10, not a 0. So that's another answer to your question. The description in the Bhagavatam is a 10. The description in Garga Samhita is not a 10. So don't compare the two for that reason. Authoritative source distinction.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. You mentioned that Harisuri gives the example, he gives the reasoning that Krishna thought that from Rama's pastime, Ramachandra kills Kara, so then in Krishna Lila, Balaram should
kill the donkey.
Dhenukasura. And I was just thinking, in our Mahamantra also we chant Hare Rama, and for Rama we can consider it as Lord Ram or as Balaram. So it's like in two places they're making that connection of like Ram and Balaram. So I was just wondering what that's about.
Well, then you could add there's a third Rama, Lord Ramachandra. So you're wondering what's that about. It depends on one's heart. So one's heart. In the recent Japa retreat and the Festival of Holy Name, there's a nice description by Gopal Guru on how to chant. One of the indications, I hope you can follow what I'm about to say. One of the indications in Hari Bhakti Vilas is when saying the Mahamantra, which is what your question is, one should meditate on the meaning of the mantra. And he gives a meaning of Rama to mean Krishna, without the detail. There's detail. So it can be, depends upon one's meditation, depends upon one's association, depends upon one's heart's inclination. What's it all about? Depends on your consciousness behind your activity. And there can be multiple right answers. Your heart's orientation may be, off. But if it's those who are receiving understandings in an authoritative manner, then there can be different meanings. So the answer to what's this all about is it depends on the heart's orientation. Does that satisfy? Is that what you're looking for? Not exactly.
It makes sense what you're saying
But-
while chanting. But at least in this pastime instance, Rama is like an incarnation, right?
This is Hari Suri. He's making, this is my understanding, he's making a poetic expression. And, a poet might see, we just came across in one section, Krishna is describing Radharani as being effulgent like the moon, like the sun, and cooling like the moon. The sun and the moon are very different. It's poetic metaphor. The poetic license. So Hari Suri, is a poet type of commentator, and he's commenting in a way that strikes his heart. And it's not like that's it. That strikes his heart. Doesn't have to strike your heart or my heart. And doesn't mean if this is right, then that's wrong.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Different ways of looking at the same thing. From a scriptural point of view, from a Sanskrit point of view, it's just fine. It's just appreciation according to his heart's orientation. It's just fine. It's very sweet, in fact, more than just fine. It's a pun. You know what a pun is? Play on words. Kara. Ram killed Kara, so let Balaram kill Kara. Play on words. Yeah.
So Maharaj, just clarifying question. So in the slide that you were showing, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's, you said that he was promoting Raganuga Bhakti.
I didn't say that exactly, but go ahead.
So somebody, if they stay within the Vaidhi Bhakti, not trying to develop.
I'm very happy with Vaidhi Bhakti, personally. And I don't think it's crude intelligence.
I just want to clarify.
When as my Krishna consciousness evolves, that door is there, and at the right time, it'll open the door. But I'm not envious of people that are eating people who are going through that door. I feel a little uncomfortable, don't have the adhikar, and they act as if they do. And it's a disturbance to the society of devotees. And there are people that are in that category. That's a discernment. That's me, subjectively. I see people not qualifying. What's the lack of adhikar? They're self-centered. It's not about love for Krishna. It's about me. And when I've tried to communicate that to certain people. They got beans in their ears. It's just like, okay. I'm stepping back from that discussion. But it doesn't mean the people that have the qualification, and one day I'll have the qualification more than today, someday tomorrow, because it's Rupa Goswami. And I'm not anxious. I got to hurry up and get there. I want to be qualified. And do it properly, etc. Don't make an ass of myself, or an embarrassment to the Vaishnav community when I don't have the adhikar. Even I know what I read the text. I know what the text says. I'm saying it in that extreme. It's not a 0. It's not a 10 either. It's not like I'm Raga Bhakta or Raga Nuga Sadhana Bhakti. There are steps. Anyway, I'm over answering your question. There are steps that many of us are taking, myself included, that are in that direction. But it's not hurry up and make it more than it is or should be. For example, developing affinity for the 6 Goswamis and certain persons amongst the 6 Goswamis. It's growing naturally. And they're not ragatmikas, but they're attached to ragatmikas. So it's just good. It's like touching the electric wire that's connected to the powerhouse. I don't have to go touch the powerhouse. Okay?
Yes. Thank you, Maharaj.
I've over-answered your question.
Haribol Maharaj. Very nice.
I had no idea that this one little slide would take up our whole time.
What kind of intelligence do these scientists have to say that they cannot see the hands of God in anything? I mean, there is no evidence for him. And we're talking about some of the top scientists.
Oh, yeah.
Maya Parita Jnana.
That's the answer. Your question has been answered.
But
Their intelligence has been stolen by Maya. What kind of intelligence? Stolen by Maya intelligence. Now, I've just been listening to Prabhupada speak on this point in recorded lectures, of course. To be a scientist, it takes intelligence, but it's misapplied intelligence because there's a priori disposition against. So Krishna gives intelligence to that person to be a demon. Demons, to be a demon, it takes intelligence. It was giving an example of gangsters and thieves and smugglers, and they do very sophisticated things to do their dirty business. It takes intelligence, but it's misapplied. So where'd they get intelligence, Krishna? Well, there's the response to your question. What kind of, it's Maya Pratyajnana intelligence. Their real knowledge is stolen. They got something else, and they're holding on to that something else and holding it up. And people go, yeah, wow, they're intelligent. It takes intelligence, to do what demons do. Yep. Okay. Someone else. That's it. Fantastic. You have something else. No, you just looked around like you got something else. Okay. Sri Vrindavan. Give the microphone to Sri Vrindavan.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I was just wondering about, Dhenukasura is in Tala forest and all his friends are there. People are so afraid of him. So, didn't Kamsa send Dhenukasura?
No.
He didn't.
Not that I know of.
That's what my question was.
No. He was just protecting the tall forest.
Oh, okay. It had nothing to do with
Nothing.
Kamsa.
No.
Okay. So he was just hanging out there.
Yeah, just hanging out. That's my understanding.
400,000 years. That's
Oh, that's the Garga Samhita. That's Garga Samhita. But, if you go with Garga Samhita that it's a 10, it's not a 10. But if you take it as a 10, then it was predetermined not Kamsa sent him. He was there to get liberation from Balaram.
Okay.
Yes. Last question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, I will ask this question. If you think it's a lot, then we can do this. If you can do this later, that's fine. So I heard somewhere.
That's a loaded preamble.
Yeah, this has been going on in my mind for a while, and I heard in one of the lectures that even following Srila Prabhupada and following his instructions and having that love with Srila Prabhupada is also another form of Raganuga Bhakti, because this was described in the lecture, because Srila Prabhupada was in Vrindavan and he took Vrindavan with him all over the world. So he is, he's not a Ragatmika Bhakta, but he's also a Raganuga follower, and that's why following him would mean we are doing Raganuga Bhakti.
That's an interesting slant.
Yeah, and I was trying to understand this as how.
Well, yeah, let's do this. I mean, I'm not going to say no or yes.
Okay.
You say maybe. Maybe in the sense that, what was the emphasis? If there's a Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti, there's a certain emphasis because of their heart's orientation. Back to this earlier discussion. Because of their heart's orientation. They don't de-emphasize Vaidhi, but in their behavior, in their speech. Now, was Prabhupada on that platform? Yes. So, but is that the main flavor of his emphasis? No. I mean, there are examples where he displayed outwardly what was inside. What was inside was the highest stages of bhakti, without examples. So, in one sense, you could say yes. In another sense, you could say, because of his emphasis, not really. Or then this other answer, maybe. Now, let's say somebody is a fastidious follower of Srila Prabhupada. If they have dull intelligence, they're not going to entertain for themselves or for others entering into the Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. That's the crude intelligence example. I know some devotees like that. So, no, that doesn't address exactly what's that being a follower of Prabhupada, one can be a follower of Prabhupada and be in this crude intelligence category. But one who's a follower of a Raganuga Bhakta doesn't have the crude intelligence. So the possibility is there. So then my answer is a maybe. Depends on the consciousness behind the person who's following Prabhupada and what do they understand that means? An easier fit, one-to-one fit, is the six Goswamis, for example. Now, was Prabhupada a strict follower of Rupa Goswami? You bet. But he had a certain emphasis. And those who are amongst six Goswamis, they followed Vidhis like lines in stone. And there's abundant description of their inner contemplation. It just comes in their writings. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. 9:30.